You open your eyes, but there's nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to feel. Not even your own breath makes a sound. You are awake, but it's as if reality forgot to turn itself on. The walls around you are white. Floor, ceiling, corners, edges, perfectly smooth, perfectly flat, so empty that even your thoughts echo. There is no window, no clock, no one speaking behind a door, not even the hum of electricity, only the sound of your own blood in your skull. And even that is fading. Welcome. You are in total isolation. Psychologists call it white torture, a sensory deprivation cell so absolute it begins to unmake the mind piece by piece, and it starts sooner than you think. The first few hours are strange, but not unbearable. You pace, you sit, you lie down, you hum to yourself, even if it sounds wrong in the silence. You try to remember how long it's been, but there's nothing to measure it against. No sun, no noise, no schedule. Your body clock detaches. Time becomes sludge. Every second feels like an hour, but every hour feels like 10 minutes. The brain doesn't know what to do when it's not being stimulated, so it turns inward. And that's when the descent begins. You notice things, tiny things, the weight of your tongue, the micro movements of your eyes, the dry air scraping your nostrils, the shape of your thoughts. They get louder, not in volume, but in intensity. It's like your brain is looking for input and starts amplifying your internal world to make up for the external silence. You start replaying old conversations, memories from school, a fight you had 5 years ago, the way someone once looked at you. Then you replay it again and again until it loops and twists and warps. You begin to wonder, did that even happen the way I remember? Did I say that out loud? Did they really look at me like that? Or am I imagining it now? You start to question everything, because with no sensory feedback, even your own memories become unstable. Your body follows. The brain is starving for stimulus, so it sends fake signals, a buzz in your fingers, a phantom itch, a flicker of movement in your peripheral vision, even though there's nothing there. You start to feel watched, but you know you're alone, and somehow that makes it worse. Because then the voice in your head, the only voice left, begins to whisper the most dangerous thought of all. Maybe you deserve this. Psychological studies on white torture have documented horrifying results. Subjects placed in rooms like this, perfectly white, silent, and without contrast, began to break down in as little as 36 hours. Some lost their ability to speak, not because they were gagged, but because the brain stopped practicing language. Others forgot who they were, forgot their own names, forgot that they were real. Because in the absence of contrast, the mind cannot anchor itself. Not in time, not in identity, not in anything. That's the real torture. Not pain, not punishment, but erasure. There is no scream here, because there is no one to hear it. There is no resistance, because there is nothing to resist against. Only you in a room that doesn't care. A mind slowly peeling itself apart just to feel something. This is only the beginning. And if you think you could survive this, ask yourself one question. What would you hold on to if your own thoughts became strangers? There's a reason the worst torture isn't loud. It's not the scream, not the pain, not the image of someone breaking your bones. The worst torture is nothing, because when nothing is happening around you, your brain begins to fill the void. It doesn't like silence. It doesn't like stillness. It doesn't know what to do. Without contrast, without stimulation, without meaning. So it starts to invent, and what it invents is never kind. You begin to hear footsteps, soft, just beyond the edge of your hearing, but there's no one there. A whisper, a creak in the wall, a scrape behind your back, even though the walls are flat and bare. It's not real. It's not real, but that doesn't stop your heart from pounding because it feels real. Your own thoughts are turning into hallucinations. Psychologists have a term for this: sensory substitution. When the outside world goes quiet, the brain starts to pull from within. Memories, dreams, subconscious fears, traumas you thought were buried. They start to surface, not as thought, but as experiences. You don't remember the argument. You relive it. You don't think about your shame. You drown in it. And because nothing in the environment is pushing back, you start to lose the difference between imagination and perception. You see colors, flecks of light, shapes in the blank ceiling that weren't there before. The corner of the room stretches when you stare at it too long. Your eyes play tricks. Then your mind joins in. You start to believe things, terrible things, that the room is watching you, that there are cameras in the ceiling, that someone is behind the wall, laughing. You imagine the mirror you can't see, the red light that blinks silently in your dreams, the voice that says you're being studied. At first, you deny it. Then you start to wonder, what if it's true? Because you need a reason, a purpose, a structure, even if it's horrifying. Your brain would rather believe it's trapped in a malicious experiment than face the void. Because meaningless is worse than evil. Nothingness is the true horror. You begin to create a story, not on purpose, but because your mind craves narrative. You remember that time someone looked at you too long. That question the doctor asked that felt off. That form you signed without reading. It all connects now. It has to. Otherwise, why are you here? You invent the enemy, the secret experiment, the hidden watchers, the punishment for something you don't remember doing. It feels better than randomness, better than silence. Even if the story makes you the villain, even if it makes you the lab rat, at least you matter in that version. But now, you've crossed the line. You're not just hallucinating sounds or shapes. You're hallucinating reasons. And once your mind believes a story it made up, you'll act like it's true. You'll scream at people who aren't there, apologize to crimes you never committed, beg to a mirror that doesn't exist. You're no longer trying to escape the room. You're trying to escape yourself. This is what the silence does. It doesn't kill the body. It corrupts the mind. It mutates identity until your sense of self is nothing more than a broken loop, an echo chamber with no sound, only fear, repeating itself forever. How do you know you exist? It seems like a simple question until the things you use to prove it disappear. You no longer hear your name. You no longer see your reflection. You no longer feel the warmth of someone else's skin. There's no one to ask, am I here? And no voice to answer. So your brain answers itself. And that's where things start to fall apart. You try to remember who you are, but your memories are blurry. Not gone, just slippery. Details melt. Faces lose their shape. Voices blur together. You tell yourself you're 27, but how do you know? You try to picture your mother's face. But is that her nose? Or someone else's? Was that memory a dream? Or something you saw in a movie once? The difference dissolves. Because without outside confirmation, memory becomes fiction. People think identity is stable, but it's not. It's social. It's relational. It's built by mirrors, and you have none left. What you used to be was constantly fed back to you through the reactions of others. Smiles, frowns, questions, disagreements. Now, there's none of that. So your identity begins to starve. It loses shape. Then it loses weight. Then it collapses. You sit in the corner of the white room, but you're not sure if it's really a corner. It might just be where the light bends. You think you slept, but there's no evidence of time passing. You think of your name. You say it out loud. It sounds wrong. It doesn't taste like yours anymore. It echoes back as a stranger's voice. You try another name. It fits better. You try a different age. That feels more accurate somehow. You laugh or cry, but you're not sure which it is. The line has broken. When psychologists studied extended sensory isolation, they found something terrifying. After enough time, the subject begins to split. One part continues to sit, breathe, eat. The other part starts watching from above, like an observer. A second self, dissociation, depersonalization, a survival mechanism when your psyche has no anchor left. But here, it doesn't stop there. The second self begins to talk, not like a voice in your head, but like another you. You don't belong here. You're not real. You were never real. And it doesn't feel like madness. It feels like truth. You start to believe that you're part of a simulation, or a test, or a dream someone else is having. You try to prove you're real by biting your arm, by punching the wall, but you feel nothing, or too much. Pain is no longer a reliable metric, just another variable in a collapsing system. The only thing that seems to have weight is fear, because fear doesn't need logic. It doesn't need memory. It doesn't need identity. Fear is primal, instinctive, untouched by language, unaffected by context, and now it's all you have left. So you sit, afraid, of the room, of yourself, of what you might do next, because the self you once were is gone. And what's left behind isn't a person, it's just a pulse, a nervous system, looping through confusion, trying to reconstruct a human out of dust. There's a moment, and you never know exactly when it happens, where your body is still functioning, your lungs still moving, your heart still beating, but you're no longer waiting. You've stopped expecting the door to open. You've stopped counting the days because you don't know what a day is anymore. You're not hoping. You're not resisting. You're just existing, but not like a human, like an artifact, a remnant of thought trapped in flesh. The silence used to hurt. Now it's part of you. A second skin, a climate, a law. You don't scream anymore because screaming implies someone might hear you. You don't cry because tears once had meaning. They were supposed to be seen, but now your sadness is a private language with no listener. So it dies before it's even born. People talk about loneliness. They imagine quiet nights without a partner, missed phone calls, a cold bed. But this isn't loneliness. This is obliteration, the erasure of presence, not just of others, but of yourself. You haven't heard your own name in months, years. Time is meaningless here, and so are you. Eventually, your thoughts slow down, not because you're at peace, but because the brain can't maintain the simulation forever. It runs out of memory, out of purpose, out of itself. You stop thinking in language. Your inner monologue fades. There are just impressions now, flashes, flickers, a cold sensation, a shadow that doesn't exist. You stare at the wall and feel like you're seeing the entire universe, not because the wall is profound, but because you've forgotten what meaning feels like. Sometimes something inside you twitches, a final spark, a voice that whispers, "There used to be more than this." But then the silence swallows even that. You no longer know what more means. You no longer care. You've become the room, the stillness, the absence. And still, no one comes. The door doesn't open. The light doesn't change. The world doesn't shift. Because the world forgot you. And perhaps the most horrifying truth of all is that it didn't take much. A sealed room, a lack of sound, a human left alone with their mind. That was all it took to unmake a soul. White prison, not bars, not chains, not pain, just stillness, just silence, just you slowly forgetting that you ever existed at all.